Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. Thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Hem Korsara and here's what we've lined up for you on Speed News at this hour. Take a look. The FBI has released video of the suspected shooter in the killing of right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. The new video shows the suspected shooter fleeing the scene. A figure dressed in black is seen running across the roof to the corner of the building, then jumping onto the grass beneath before walking to a nearby road and crossing it to enter a wooded area. The suspect was wearing sunglasses, Converse shoes and a distinctive black t-shirt with an American flag and an eagle. A reward of up to $100,000 has been announced for the capture of the suspect. US President Trump drew both cheers and boos as he attended a baseball game at the Yankees stadium. While marking the 24th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, authorities installed security glass outside an upper-level suite on a third base side over the visiting Detroit Tigers dugout for the president. Moments earlier, as he first took his seat, the president briefly waved to the crowd and flashed a thumbs up. But not all fans noticed because there was no announcement that he was arriving. Poland has closed its border with Belarus ahead of joint Russian-Belarusian military exercises, which are scheduled to take place from the 12th to the 16th of September. Poland closed its border at midnight into Friday amid the fallout from Russia's drone incursion earlier this week. Poland said some of the drones that entered its airspace on Wednesday came from Belarus, where Russian and Belarusian troops have been gathering ahead of the exercises. The drills have also raised security concerns in neighboring NATO member states, including Poland, Lithuania and Latvia. Belarus has released 52 political prisoners in a deal brokered by the US, which has led to the easing of some of the sanctions on the country's national airline, Belarus. The airline was sanctioned by the European Union, the US and others after Belarusian flight controllers ordered a commercial jet traveling from Greece to Lithuania to land in Minsk. Once the plane landed, authorities arrested Roman Patrusevich, a dissident journalist who was on board. The latest development signals a potential thaw in relations between Washington and Minsk, despite Belarus being a close ally of Russia. Brazil Supreme Court sentenced Bolsonaro to 27 years, 3 months in prison for plotting a coup at the end of a landmark trial that divided the nation and drew US fury. Bolsonaro, who had denied any wrongdoing, is currently under house arrest in Brasilia. Bolsonaro's defense lawyers said that they will appeal this ruling. 4 of 5 justices reviewing the case in the panel find that the far-right politician was guilty on 5 counts, making Bolsonaro the first former Brazilian president to be convicted of attempting a coup. Senator Flávio Bolsonaro, son of former Brazilian president, denounced his father's persecution and called for the parliament to unite and grant unrestricted amnesty following the former leader's conviction. Many Brazilians celebrated the conviction of former President Jair Bolsonaro. Rio de Janeiro residents from the Santa Teresa neighborhood took to the streets in a musical celebration following the conviction of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Foreign ministers of Austria, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Hungary and Slovakia met in the Central Five format to discuss key issues including the ongoing war in Ukraine, West Asia tensions, European Union enlargement and measures to combat illegal migration. Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky condemned Russia's drone incursion into Poland, emphasizing the need for NATO to strengthen its defense capabilities and unity, especially on the eastern flank. Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani told the UN Security Council that Israel was derailing efforts to end the Gaza war by attacking Hamas leaders in Doha, pledging to continue mediation. The Qatari Prime Minister accused Israeli leaders of showing disregard for the lives of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. The UN Security Council issued a joint statement expressing deep concern and emphasizing the need for de-escalation without mentioning Israel by name. The statement also acknowledged Qatar's vital role in mediating peace efforts. Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif met with Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, calling for Muslim countries to unite against Israeli aggression. Following recent attacks on Doha, Sharif expressed solidarity with Qatar, condemning the Israeli strikes as a blatant violation of international law and Qatar's sovereignty. He appreciated Qatar's efforts to bring peace in Gaza, emphasizing that Israeli actions aim to undermine regional stability. The Palestinian death toll in Gaza Strip has risen to more than 64,700, with around 163,800 others injured since the conflict between Hamas and Israel began on the 7th of October 2023. In the past 24 hours, 72 deaths and 356 injuries were reported due to Israeli attacks. Additionally, 7 people, including a child, have died from malnutrition and starvation in the besieged enclave over the past 24 hours. The United Nations has suspended aid to Afghans returning from neighboring countries due to the Taliban's ban on female staff working with the organization. The UN said that its women employees had been prevented from accessing their workplaces in several locations across the country this week. This decision has affected over 2.1 million Afghans who have returned from Pakistan and Iran so far this year. The UN relies on female employees to interview women returnees for cultural reasons, making it impossible to continue operations without them.
शॉर्ट है कोई 20-25 बंदे साथ रहते हैं एक साथ।
Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa led a peaceful march in capital in defense of his referendum to curb the crime plaguing the country. Days before, Ecuador's top court rejected constitutional reforms he had proposed, which included chemical castration for rapists, reopening casinos, impeaching judges, and scrapping the council that appoints oversight officials.
Siempre ha sido rebelde.
Tens of thousands of protesters gathered in Barcelona to demand Catalan independence on La Diada Day, the National Day of Catalonia. Protesters voiced concerns over a decline in the use of Catalan language and judicial persecution by the Spanish state. Despite the large crowds, the independence movement has been facing difficulties. While some parties remain strongly opposed to negotiations with the Spanish government, the new socialist Catalan president Salvador Illa has defended a platform of dialogue and coexistence. families of protesters killed in Nepal's recent violent clashes gathered in Kathmandu for a candlelight vigil. Expressing anger and seeking justice, they lit candles outside a hospital morgue, paying tribute to their loved ones and demanding answers about those still missing. The families plan to meet with Nepal army officials to push for accountability and transparency. Nepal's health ministry said that 34 people were killed and 1,368 wounded in protests on Monday and Tuesday. They were sparked by a short-lived social media ban and fueled by broader discontent over corruption and unemployment. Protesters said that they are demanding state honors for their loved ones and are not interested in monetary compensation. US President Donald Trump's nominee for ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that US and India are not far apart on trade deal. He said that Trump has invited an Indian delegation to Washington next week for talks, pledging to strengthen ties. Sergio Gore called India a strategic partner and cornerstone of regional stability. Asian markets surged Friday following Wall Street's record highs as expectations of multiple US interest rate cuts boosted global investor sentiment. Japan, South Korea and Taiwan hit record levels driven by AI optimism and lower bond yields. The US CPI report was slightly firm but not alarming, reinforcing bets on a Fed rate cut next week. With analysts expecting cuts to continue through 2025, Treasury yields dropped, easing pressure on global bond markets. Meanwhile, European shares opened higher while ECB held rates steady, signaling it is in a good place but may cut again in December if needed. The US dollar remained under pressure on Friday as rising jobless claims and modest inflation fueled expectations of a Federal Reserve rate cut next week. The dollar index fell on pace for a second straight weekly decline. Investors now see a 25 basis point cut as certain, though expectations for a larger 50-point cut have eased. Treasury yields hovered just above 4%, while mixed economic data created uncertainty in the market. The yen held steady after a US-Japan currency statement, while the euro dipped slightly as ECB officials signaled confidence in the economic outlook and held rates steady. Oil prices edged lower on Friday, extending losses from the previous session amid concerns over weakening US demand and rising global supply. Brent and US crude oil both dropped around 0.5% after the IEA projected stronger than expected supply growth from OPEC Plus this year. OPEC, however, kept its demand outlook steady. Saudi exports to China are set to rise sharply in October, raising questions about China's capacity to absorb extra supply. Meanwhile, Russia's oil revenues have dropped and US crude inventories rose by 3.9 million barrels. Expectations of a Fed rate cut next week may support future oil demand. Gold prices rose on Friday and are on track for a fourth straight weekly gain, driven by fears of a weakening US labor market and expectations of multiple Federal Reserve rate cuts. Spot gold rose 0.4% to $3,647, while US gold futures hit $3,686. Despite higher consumer inflation in August, falling producer prices and rising jobless claims point to economic softness. The Fed is expected to cut rates by 25 basis points next week. Gold, which benefits from lower interest rates, has surged 39% this year and may soon test $3,900. Silver, platinum and palladium also posted weekly gains. Global electric vehicle sales grew 15% in August, the lowest pace since January, according to research firm Motion. The China EV sales rose just 6%, down sharply from earlier in the year, though a rebound is expected in the fourth quarter with new subsidies worldwide. About 1.7 million EVs were sold, with Europe growing 48%, North America 13%, and other regions 56%. China's biggest EV maker, BYD, lowered its 2025 global sales target by 16%, reflecting weaker domestic demand, which has contributed to overall slowdown in EV growth. A French lawmaker has called for a criminal investigation into TikTok, accusing the popular app of deliberately endangering the lives of its young users. The move follows a parliamentary committee report on the platform's psychological effects. The committee's chairman also accused TikTok executives of perjury, alleging that they lied about the awareness of risks. The committee was originally set up after a 2024 lawsuit filed by 7 families who claimed the platform exposed their children to content that encouraged suicide. It recommended banning children under 15 from using social media, while those aged 15 to 18 would face a nighttime curfew, blocking access between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. TikTok rejected the allegations in a statement, calling itself a scapegoat for issues affecting the entire tech industry. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission is demanding answers from 7 top tech companies, including Google parent Alphabet, Meta, and OpenAI, about the safety of their popular AI chatbots. The agency announced that it is seeking information on how the firms test for and mitigate potential consumer risks linked to their technology. Officials are also seeking information on how the companies monetize user interactions, handle user inputs, generate chatbot responses, and use data collected from these conversations. The other companies in the FTC's list are Character.ai, Instagram, Snap, and XAI.